Have you, as an Arsenal fan, ever thought about what we might look like with another winger, whether that's someone that plays on the right wing or the left wing, or with the capacity to do both? That would give us another dimension. Have you ever wondered what it'd be like to give Bukayo Saka a break? We all know money talks in football, definitely in this present day and age. The summer transfer window is one thing. January, it's a bit opposite because there is no sales. Nobody really wants to sell players. As you know, the price goes up in January. You have to somewhat pay an inconvenience fee to the club that is ultimately a selling club, really. In an ideal world, not a single manager wants to buy or sell any players in January, because in the summer you would have done your business and been able to keep everybody happy. Nonetheless, let's see what could potentially be the case. First things first, Pedro Neto, folks, a quality player.
Did you watch the FA Cup match when you were in Portugal growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I watch more the last games, the semi-final and the final, because what I watch more when I was a kid, it's the Premier League, because it's the best championship in the world, and if you want to be a football player, I think that you have to watch the English football. And the FA Cup, yes, I watch a little bit, not too much as the Premier League, but I watch a little bit, yeah.
Who was your team? Who was your favourite team growing up as an English team?
When I was a kid, my favorite team on England was Arsenal.
Arsenal?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought from it you were going to say Liverpool or Man United.
No, Arsenal, yeah. Because with Arsene Wenger, I thought they played, besides they don't win trophies, they played a very good football.
But now, of course, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah, of course. Now I'm in Wolverhampton, I'm very happy, and of course it's the best club in England now.
Have seen by that graphic, Pedro Neto was a self-confessed Arsenal fan. Last year, allegedly, the Athletic said we was in talks with the Wolves winger, who's obviously bounced back from injury, people. And you could imagine Arsenal are going to continue to monitor his progress and probably his price tag, because he started very well this season, people. As you lot know, the Portuguese international. He's a player I'd love at the carpet, if I'm honest. I've done videos on him. You can see them on my YouTube channel, where obviously from his Braga days, he's been at Braga, he's been at Lazio, he's been at Wolves. He's been linked with Arsenal, Manchester United, and actually Liverpool. And it's the pace. Look at that chance I've just shown you, or basically goal he's created against Manchester City. Brownie points for helping Wolves take points off City. Hopefully Arsenal could do that a couple of times this season. It seems like the only place we could beat Manchester City is at Wembley. We've been getting done at the Emirates and at the obviously Etihad. But I digress. I mean, this season you've seen him perform off the left for Wolves. He can obviously play off the right. He's 23 years of age. He's bounced back from 2 long-term injuries and doesn't show that that's stopping him. And he's doing quite well, really and truly. I think he would be the perfect addition where Bukayo Saka is concerned. He can perform off the left and off the right. As I've said, people, he's direct, he's quick, he's pacey. I do think he can be hot and cold at moments. I do think there's stuff that he can improve, but he's an exciting player. He's a fullback. He's a winger, apologies, that a fullback wouldn't want to play against. He's always looking to take his man on. Now at Arsenal, again, we're going to be on the front foot a lot more, so there might not be that much space. But when you look at it, at Arsenal, obviously we're good on the transition. We've got transitional players, but the only thing close to Pedro Neto in terms of aggression and doing things at pace, I would say, is Martinelli. We'd make ourselves much more of a direct side. And obviously at Arsenal, he would have to learn to cut in onto his left foot more and be a tiny bit more delayed in his actions. But I like him. He wants to make the difference. I like his mentality. He gets kicked and he never stops going. He's a dangerous man, in my opinion. As I said, he can play on the left. He can play on the right. He's bounced back from injuries. He's 23 years of age. So obviously he's of the right age. The problem is we was quoted 50 million with his injury stuff, and now he started the season very well. That price is only going to go up, especially if you hope to poach him in January, which probably makes the sum up probably more realistic. And again, he's 23, so he ties in with what we've got with a couple of the players. As I said, he can cut in outside, he can cut inside, he can take you down the flanks. Again, in terms of end product, he needs to do a lot better because he doesn't have the best of statistics. I believe in 118 appearances for Wolves, he's got 12 goals and 17 assists. However, this season in 7 appearances, he's got a goal and 4 assists, people. So he's had a hand in 5 goals in 7 games, and he's been getting through 90 minutes, which again is a positive. Next, you've got Kubo, who I'm sure Tommy Yasu has to, been telling Mikel Arteta about. As you know, he's been at La Masia, he's been at Real Madrid, he's been at Getafe, he's been at Mallorca. Currently, he's playing in the Champions League and in La Liga for Sociedad, and I like him a lot. Admittedly, I think the only problem around Kubo would probably be his physicality. I don't know if his physicality will will translate. But there's a lot to like about the player. Again, another one who fits the age remit. He's 22 years of age, turns 23 in June. Obviously, he's been schooled at La Masia and schooled through Real Madrid system, and he's doing it in La Liga. I do think this man could be on an upward trajectory. The jury is still out on all of these players, of course, but I do like him. And he can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play behind the striker. He's got a very good final ball. You know, he's a player that doesn't necessarily, you know, he can thrive in a lot of space on the transition in football, but he can perform in tight spaces. And as you know, being able to play multiple positions or be able to perform in multiple roles is a luxury that Mikel Arteta has been installing in Arsenal's team this season. As you could see, very different denominations, but Gabriel Jesus, Trossard would be another one. You could slice Zinchenko, Timbo, who's sadly injured, Tomiyasu, Benjamin White, you know, slyly Kai Havertz, Reece Nelson, technically, Emil Smith-Rowe. And there's probably a number of players that I forgot to mention. I like the guy a lot. People can play cam, can play left, can play right. You know, again, you could ask Tomiyasu for a character reference. He's made 52 appearances for Sociedad with 14 goals and 10 assists to his name, people. Very fleet-of-footed, really skillful. Physicality could be the only thing he probably struggles in the Premier League, but he's a quality player, and he's not afraid to try things. You know, he's not. You got to have some bollocks on you to not make Tony Kroos, you know, a legend in the game. Very good player, if I'm completely honest with you. I've got a lot of time for this individual, if I'm completely honest. And again, knows when to go down the flanks, knows when to cut inside, knows when to use his left, knows when to use his right. I would describe him as left-footed, but you know, he seems relatively both-footed. And again, makes good decisions. It sounds stupid, but in the final third, what will separate you as a footballer ultimately is making the difference in the final third. The hardest thing to do in football, as you lot know, is doing the right things. Pass when you need to pass, shoot when you need to shoot. And he seems like he's developing that more calculated approach in his game. As you know, a lot of young players, a lot of footballers play on instinct, and you have to keep that healthy balance of playing on instinct. How many of you have played Sunday League and you've played a pass, or you've dribbled through someone, or you've scored a wonderful goal, or you've made a great defensive or offensive action, and then after it you stopped and thought, how the hell did I do that? I definitely thought that with my goal that some of my regular supporters would have seen in my intro, people, in the sense of I thought about it in that, you know, in that goal, I thought I was being closed down. But as the older you get, the more calculated you have to be. And I think he's installing that. He's at the right place to develop in Sociedad. They're in the Champions League. They've got a bunch of other players that could develop as well. You know, Zubamendi, Lenormand, the centre-half. We've been linked with a bunch of their players, if I'm honest. Obviously, they've got Kieran Tierney, who's unfortunately, after a great start at Sociedad, has sadly suffered a hamstring injury. And there's rumours he'll be out for anything from 1 to 3 months. Again, very silky player. And again, for market ability reasons, you know, to have another Asian player at Arsenal be great, really, because again, we've got a lot of fans in Asia. So there's a lot of, on top of him just being good on a football pitch, there's a lot of marketable reasons from him. And again, the only thing I would knock about him, if he comes to Arsenal, I don't want to see no more of them twerking celebrations there. Why for that? I don't know about that around North London. Next, I would say Jarrod Bowen. Now, Bowen will cost a lot of money. You know, we probably won't get Bowen, but he is Premier League proven. He's 26, turning 27. He's very direct. He scores a lot of goals. You know, he plays with his head up. And I think, with the greatest of respect to West Ham, I think Bowen's one of those players who would improve and look a lot better being around more quality players. He's been through the leagues as well, been at Hereford, been at Hull. So there's a sense of urgency, and I think the mentality's there. He'll cost a lot of money, and there's rumours around the new contract for Jarrod Bowen as well. So it probably is a myth. But I like his willingness to take people on. I like his movement. He's always in the right areas to pop up with goals here and there. He's a quality player. And obviously, after losing Declan Rice, West Ham were not going to let him go. As I said, there's rumours around giving him a new contract and a new deal to protect his resale value, and obviously to keep him at the club. He's been a fantastic player. Obviously, he's Premier League proven. He's also started the Premier League season in blistering form, if I'm completely honest with you. He's probably better on the right more than the left, and I do think he's got the capacity to play up front. But, you know, he started the season very, very well. He's in 7 appearances so far in the Premier League. He's got 5 goals and 1 assist, so he's been in relatively hot form. He's made 139 Premier League appearances for the Hammers, West Ham already as well. So again, fairly Premier League proven, and that's been something Arteta has done. Really, it didn't work out with Willian, it didn't work out with Cedric, but we've signed Trossard, we signed Declan Rice, we've obviously got Kai Havertz, and for not the biggest of figures off topic, he's great in the air as well. But yeah, we signed Kai Havertz, Trossard, Declan Rice, David Raya, Aaron Ramsdale, Benjamin White. Whether they're established Premier League players or they've got a season to their name, we've showed more of a willingness to sign players based in the Premier League. And I'm not going to say it doesn't have its benefits. I don't really care where a player comes from because there's no guarantees. You could be Premier League proven and be rubbish. You could, in theory, be signed from a League Two side. And do quite well, really. But it does show what happens if you take a chance, because West Ham took a chance on Bowen. He was doing all right at Hull in the Championship, and they haven't looked back, really and truly. You can never have too many good penalty takers at Arsenal Football Club, especially, after, Kai Havertz scored from the spot. What an acrobatic finish. That was improvisation. We've got Saka, we've got Odegaard. If we aspire to be a team that wants to win things, we have to prepare for penalty shootouts as well. And obviously, the last penalty shootout, we was involved in European competition with Sport and didn't work out. The last one at Wembley did. And for someone who's left-footed, I think a bit like Trossard, it sounds silly, but he knows when to take chances, when to buy an extra touch, when to take 2 touches, when to set someone for another opportunity, when to hit it first time, when to, wait for the keeper to dive. He uses certain angles. And for me, again, a bit like Martinelli, give us a new direction on the transition. This is probably a dream of a signing. Now, Cherki would be a player, again, another player I've done a video on YouTube a few years ago. It's taken him a while to really get to grips with top flight football, but he's a jewel of a player, people. I think he's a linchpin in the French football. Again, ability and quality means nothing. You need you need to connect them with the tenacity to improve, the humbleness, etc. I love this guy as a footballer, and I think everybody in Europe does, especially with Lyon's struggles. Could it be worth a cheeky bid in January, people? I think he's a lovely technician, great in tight spaces, can play in at least 3 of the front 4 positions, uses both feet, very cultured. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but while he's French, he's probably of East African heritage, whether it's Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, whether it's professional footballers or people that you play with on the street. Moroccans, Algerians, that kind of region, they're all lit. They basically move like Brazilians. You never really find a player from them kind of regions there or of them descent like Nasri that's not silky, that's not wonderful on the eye, that's not fleet of footed, that's not great in tight spaces, that doesn't have an arsenal, ironically, pardon the pun, of tricks, really. And I think Cherki's lit. Now, Lyon have obviously sold Pacola. They've let Luke Bob go. They probably want to hold on to some players, but Lyon are struggling at the moment. Again, I don't know if he reckons he's ready to make the step up, but if he is, I think he's a player we'd like. Another one that would have to get to grips with the intensity of the Prem, with the physicality of the Prem, with the speed of thought, but he's a lovely player, absolute lovely player, and one of my favorite young players in football, full stop, if I'm completely honest with you. As I said, he's not the finished article. There's a lot that he needs to improve on, and a lot that I think Mikel Arteta can get out of him, because Mikel Arteta has made Odegaard a goal scoring midfielder. Obviously, he, for the last couple of years now, Saka's been bagging on that front as well. So there's a lot in that regards. Obviously, Martinelli got 14, 15 goals in the league. You hope that can rub off on Kai Havertz and Jesus. So I think he would firmly tie into what Arsenal are doing. And on top of that, obviously, we've got historical French connections as a football club, owing to the Henrys, the Vieiras, the Arsene Wengers, the list goes on, really and truly. And for me, it's his adaptability. He would give us a new dimension in our team. And I think he'd be great in tight spaces. As you know, Arsenal Football Club, 9 times out of 10, we're playing against low blocks. He would give us another dimension. As I said, unfortunately, I think everybody in Europe, Chelsea, PSG, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Dortmund, Barca, Madrid, everyone has probably ran the rule over him, is probably keeping a close eye on his development at Lyon. We've been linked with Yeremy Pino prior. Now, he's on a bit of a goal drought, if I'm honest with you. I think the last time I counted, he's got no goals in 8 or 9. The last time he bagged was last season. But I do appreciate his directness. I do appreciate the fact that Arsenal have scouted him previously. Another one who can play on the left, on the right. I actually think there's scope to one day maybe be converted to a false 9 or a striker of sorts, people. I do like him, really. He's very much a Spanish player, but I do think he's almost un-Spanish-like, if I'm honest with you, in that, he's not necessarily the most eye-catching on the ball. In fact, the best way to put it, he's a lot more direct than you'd attribute Spanish players or Spanish wingers to, really. To look at Rayan Cherki, for example, to go back, I don't really think Cherki's a pure winger. He's almost like you know, like a Kulusevski. Like Kulusevski's not quite a 10. He's not quite a winger. He's more of a wide playmaker. Or for Arsenal fans, we know Fabio Vieira isn't a right winger, but he has played there a lot under Mikel Arteta. And you'd probably describe him more as a wide playmaker. I would say that. But this guy, I think he's more of a throwback, traditional sort of winger. He does cut inside. His link-up play is good. I don't necessarily think he's of the level right now to necessarily make the step up, but you never know. He's evidently a great crosser on the ball. I do think his defensive actions, he doesn't shy away from that aspect of the game, which we've got to remember is crucial for a Mikel Arteta system and a Mikel Arteta team, as much as obviously a winger's got to be about scoring goals, getting assists, obviously making the difference, etc., etc. He rides challenges quite well, in my opinion. He shields the ball quite well. I like his ability to win fouls as well. As I said, I do think his end product can improve. I do think he's a good striker of a ball as well when the opportunity does present. He's on a bit of a goal drought at the moment, and he makes good decisions. As I said earlier, the toughest thing in football is to make the right decisions. Essentially, that's why Lionel Messi is the best. On top of his widgetry, his skill, his tenacity, his dribbling, his free kicks, his goals, his breathtaking moments, Messi makes the right decision. He has seen what the right thing to do is way before us normal humans have. You know, you look at any great midfielder, Santi Cazorla, Modric, Cesc Fabregas, Thiago, you know, Toni Kroos, Mesut Ozil, Patrick Vieira, Steven Gerrard, Lampard, you know, the list goes, Yaya Toure, the list goes on. We'll be here all day. You know, as I said, big him up for the defensive actions. But as I say, you know, the best footballers are the best decision makers. They're the best solution solvers. They're the best problem solvers. And I think that's something I do think he's got in his game to a degree. He is a good finisher, even though I believe the goals don't show. And I think he's a great team player, will work his socks off for his teammates. I do think there's several raw bits in his game, of course, that you could iron out with all of these players. None of these players are the finished article, bar the occasional few. And there's obviously capacity to operate in tight spaces as well. I've got a lot of time for him, really. Again, it's more his tenacious approach. I think there's a lot more to come from him. I don't think Villarreal will be in a rush to sell him anytime soon, but you never know. In this day and age, money talks. But whether you're going to do it in the summer or kind of focusing around January for this vid, you've got to front up the cash. As you know, as I said earlier, nobody wants to sell players really, and it essentially comes down to how much you want the player and how much you think they could impact. I'm sure, you know, Odegaard, Saliba and Rice would want new teammates, and I'm sure everyone else is. So I'm sure a lot of you are doing many calculations. There's several players that could have been mentioned in this video. There's several wingers. Some are, you know, you'd expect Arsenal to be, you know, on their computers and stuff like that, not only just looking at household names or young players taking the eye or catching football fans by surprise and lighting up our hearts and showing us quality, but you'd imagine there's some lesser known entities. You know, you'd imagine Arsenal have a scouting list of the Pedro Netos, the Bowens, the Kubos, etc., and then lesser known entities. We have been linked with Jamie Bynon-Gittens of Dortmund, who signed the new deal. He's English, obviously he's joined Borussia Dortmund. I've done a video on Nusa before, and I'm sure you would have seen the last international break what he did for Holland. I'm a big fan of Karim Adeyemi, even though I think he needs to improve his consistency. We've been linked with Elise, who can play across a couple of positions, but is going to cost a lot and is currently injured. Nico Williams could be a free agent by the end of the season as well, which is interesting. So the question remains, though, people, will Arsenal sign someone in January? Will we sign another winger? Who will we sign? You know, will it be a striker? You know, will it be a striker? Will it be a winger? Are we able to sign a winger and a striker? Are we able to sign another central midfielder? I think we're getting to that scenario where, you know, we've got a good squad if everybody's fit. We have got depth. And I think sooner rather than later, we're going to be in a position where we probably have to look at players that, you know, are better than what we have. For example, obviously it's a hell of an example, but let's just say we've got a striker, we've got the centre mids, we've got the defensive aspects of the game on lock, we've got the defensive options on lock, and then there was a player on the market that plays in the same role as Saka but is better than Saka. You know, obviously it'd be harsh on Saka, but you'd want us to buy him because that can bring us up a few levels. I think that is the scenario generally, not so much on Saka or Odegaard, but that's the scenario we're going to find ourselves in. Another winger would be great, people, really. There's a lot of players, really. Some can play up front as well as out wide. Some can play more on the left and the right. Probably going to sign more of a multifunctional player. I'm very doubtful as to whether we sign any of these players. But yeah, man, you lot, let me know your thoughts on the players we've discussed throughout this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on your notification bells. Most importantly, God bless you all for tuning in.